Let's start. The governor declared an emergency situation the other day in terms of the number of migrants that are coming into the Commonwealth. And
right.
you sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security asking them to expedite the employment process for people that are coming here from other countries who can't work. Explain why they can't work and what you're trying to do.
So first of all, I want to just acknowledge and extend gratitude to the governor, Mayor Wu as well. There was news today that a joint application that they sent to the federal government is going to bring in millions of dollars to help us with, to be able to house these folks, which is critically important. So I want to start by thanking them for their leadership. The other piece that is substantial is folks are here and they have crossed the border. They're here legally. And they are, of course, in housing, emergency shelter housing. They want to leave that housing and frankly, start their lives. What is holding them back is they can't work. And not because they don't want to. They have jobs and employers lined up, but the federal government is taking too long to process those applications. So I, along with 18 other AGs, so this is a multi-state effort, sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security and said, excuse me, but you have to speed this up. In some cases, it's taking 10 months to process these applications, which is way too long. And if we want to be able to ease the burden on this system, we have to get these folks to be able to work. They want to work, they're legally able to work, but they need this permit. We also want to step further to say, if it's going to take you too long for whatever reason, allow them to work, to provide documentation, get out there, and then, work it out, work the process as they're working these jobs to care for their families and, frankly, release the burden on the system.
Attorney General, when Maura Healey was here a couple of weeks ago and discussing the very same, I think was it the day she declared the emergency? The day she declared the emergency. When she said, like you did, the federal government, immediately I started thinking, well, of course, Kevin McCarthy's never going to allow this. They're not going to get 60 votes. And then she makes clear it isn't about Congress. It's about the Biden administration. And she was hesitant, and I'm trying to be fair, to call out the Biden administration. But Joe Biden and his Secretary of Homeland Security could do this afternoon. And it seems to me there's not really another side to this. Why aren't they doing it?
I think there is. So I want to be fair. Congress is a major problem in this, and we know who's holding up immigration reform. Who is standing in the way of us creating more pathways, expanding the pathways we currently have to folks to come here legally, to be able to take advantage of all the things and all the blessings we have in this country.
But you don't need comprehensive immigration reform to do what you want done here.
No, we don't. But we still need it to be able to meet the needs of what we're seeing in other countries and, of course, meet the needs of the families who are coming here. This is only a subset of those folks we're talking about. And so I want to give credit to the president as well as the vice president and the administration because they are working hard to try to create more avenues when Congress is slow to work, and we know Republicans in particular. And so what we're saying to them is we get that there is a large number of folks coming across the border, this subset of people trying to take advantage of the programs that the Biden administration is creating. And so that's going to create some bureaucracy. So we want to work in partnership with you, give you great ideas to streamline these processes, and also to let them know. In some instances, they may not know that it's taking 10 months. So we're saying, okay, it's taking 10 months. They don't want that. So we're going to work in partnership, but in no way would I point any finger at President Biden administration. They're doing what's necessary, and they're going to work with us, and I'm confident of that in response to this
But let's just be clear. I want to be clear here. On this issue specifically,
we can
work
with them
permits,
and get it done.
The Biden administration doesn't need a Republican to sign on.
That's right.
They can do it themselves. So,
and I'm confident they're going to work with us to get this right.
So if you'll excuse my legalese, you screwed us a couple of weeks ago when you had an interview with the vice president. Because our colleague...
When you started that question, I was like, wait, where's this going?
Paris Alston and I had an interview with the vice president, too. Nobody cared about that because you're interviewing her on the stage of the NAACP. Yeah. Did you ask the vice president about this when you were talking to her?
I did not. We did an interview mainly, frankly, focused on the power of the NAACP conference, that organization, the historical nature of it in Boston, racial disparities, frankly. We talked a lot about maternal health and other racial disparities, wealth building that we could do, some of the work that she's doing. But this is something we have been following because it has reached an unprecedented crisis in Massachusetts and other states. It's an opportunity for us to go back. And so she's a part of the solution. And it was great to be on stage and to have that interview with her and to highlight the work she's doing.
We felt the same way. She was great.
I'm sorry that you got screwed in that process.
Well, as I told you before we went on the air, Jim did the interview with Paris Alston, who is our morning anchor, co-anchor of the morning news, and people said that she made Jim look cool.
I wouldn't. I think that is so untrue. It is ridiculous.
Accept
She did a terrific job. I can own it.
I own it.
Yeah,
Own it.
She's somewhat more of a better dress.
Thank you.
than
I
Jim.
appreciate it. I dressed up for the vice president. So a couple of weeks ago, were you here when Diana DiZoglio was on? Or were you
Yes,
also?
I was.
The auditor joined us. And as I think most people listening to the show or in the audience here know, she wants to audit the legislature.
That's right.
Thinks she has the power. Here's what she had to say that involves you.
She will have the decision as to whether or not she chooses to represent us or the legislative leaders in this particular case.
Do you have any
I do not have any indication of where the Attorney General is leaning right now, but I would hope, of course, that she would support our efforts on behalf of taxpayers, as, again, this is a simple matter of increasing transparency, accountability, and equity, and this is the only state entity that is refusing to comply.
Okay, what are you doing?
We're doing a lot. First, I will say we've obviously been in contact with the state auditor, I myself as well, and as well as the legislature, the speaker, the president. And I just want to stress that this is rare, that you have one part of government wanting to sue another, or vice versa, depending on how this unfolds. And so we are doing our due diligence. We are reaching out to everyone. We are not rushing this process. We are looking at the laws, of course. We're also looking at all the materials that the auditor spoke to, because I didn't receive it until that day. Mm-hmm. She released the letter. I got it that day. She released audits that she thinks supports her case. We are gathering all that, and let me tell you, when we make that decision, it will be thoughtful, and we'll be crystal clear as to why we made a decision one way or the other.
I have one more question about this. She said to us that if it turns out you decided not to represent her, which would mean that you believe that she didn't have the power to audit, I think that would be the conclusion, that she would lead, in her individual capacity, not as the auditor, but as a citizen of the Commonwealth, a ballot campaign which would establish a law that would mandate that she have that power. And her argument, which I find great sympathy for, we are the least transparent state in America. It's the only state in America, as you know, where all three branches of executive, legislature, judiciary claim to be exempt from the public records law. Even if you decided that she's wrong and the legislature's right under current law, would you support the ballot question that allowed her to audit the legislature? Should she have to go that route?
So two things. One is, I do believe in transparency, and I've been on the record over the years talking about expanding public records law, access, all of that, so that voters get the information and taxpayers get the information they should be entitled to. And crystal clear on that point. This is a little different when you talk about the auditor and her authority here. We are currently reviewing ballot initiatives. And I know that we currently have, I think it was 8 groups who filed maybe close to 42, and we're still reviewing those. I cannot take a position on those yet, and I will be clear, because right now we have to go through to determine whether or not they comply with the Constitution, Article 48, and if they do, they will proceed. But there's another layer, and this is what, as we go through this, how do you translate in layman terms to people what we're doing? The tricky thing about the whole ballot initiative process is you can go through the entire process, get your required signatures. There's no part of the process where we have to analyze if the ballot initiative violates the Constitution or not, or other laws. So you could have a petition go all the way through, land on the ballot, be voted in, and then later have to decide, or if someone challenges it, if it's legal or not. And so there are so many layers and steps where people along the way can challenge the constitutionality of it. So more to come on that. Obviously, it is her power in her other capacity to pursue this. And so we will update folks if this actually goes through and is approved by the office and go from there.
But as a pro-transparency person, the last question I'll ask about this, conceptually, do you support the concept the auditor should be able to take a look at the legislature?
I'm going nowhere near that until we make our decision.
We're talking with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. We're going to get to your phone calls and texts in just one second. But I do want to ask you about this maternal health equity deal. You've awarded a big grant, $1.5 million. Explain why you thought we needed help in this regard.
Oh, my goodness. So I'm just going to pull out. So the DPH just, I have too many papers. I normally don't have this many papers with me, but there is just one particular data point I want to make sure that I share because it's actually gotten worse. So in maternal health the maternal health crisis has always been a major issue. And so there has been a data point that I think folks have known for some time that if you are a black birthing person, that you are 2 times more likely to die, to have complications, and to die in the process of giving birth than a white counterpart. But what's worse is the Department of Public Health recently released another report that talked about how those numbers have actually gotten worse. So from 2011 to 2020, they looked at various data, but found that with black, non-Hispanic birthing people, consistently, they are experiencing the highest rates of labor and delivery complications among all races, all ethnicities. And that not only has it nearly doubled, it was twofold in 2011, it's actually gotten worse and got worse in 2020. And so the data out there locally and nationally continues to be worse. And you think about, we're in Massachusetts, the healthcare system that is the greatest in the world. I'm a mother of 2 boys. By the grace of God and other things, and a great doctor and great providers and great insurance, I did not have those complications and had pretty good labors. But that is not the case for so many. And what's also amazing is there are so many organizations in the Commonwealth, across the Commonwealth, doing great work to close these gaps on the ground. And we said, you know what, we want to support you. So for the first time in the history of the office, we are using our grant-making tool, and we put out $1.5 million to support organizations. They applied through a grant process. We received, of course, a lot more than we could give. And we rewarded organizations across every single county in Massachusetts, as far as Berkshire County. The only county that didn't get it was Franklin County, sadly, but we're working with folks there to identify organizations that we can partner with in the future, because we wanted every county, but we didn't get Franklin this time. And these folks will do the work of making sure folks have access to doulas, that folks have access to health navigators, communication, and other things they would need so much to be able to close this gap. And I am beyond excited and delighted for the work by my internal team, but also these organizations as well.
Well, not only is the work you're doing, I just want to do an ad for a colleague of ours who's on the show every week. In addition to the wonderful work you're doing on this issue, Michael Curry, who's with us weekly,
That's right.
He's head of the League of Community Health Centers and leading this health equity compact, a couple dozen people of color who are leading health organizations.
That's right.
Instead, I know you're working with them, is doing wonderful work to get
He
the
and
message
so many
out.
others
Yeah.
were at the
Yeah.
outset even informing the idea.
Yeah.
So before we crafted and finalized the application, so many folks have been doing this work. So it's been a true partnership,
Great.
and I'm excited for the outcomes.
Want to take some calls?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Mary Lou in Brookline, you are on with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Mary Lou.
Yes, good morning,
Hi, Mary Lou.
Councilwoman, or Attorney General.
She's the Attorney General.
I was on the council before, and I did love that too, so thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I've been talking to some friends of mine. I don't know if this is under your jurisdiction, about the whole Kendra Lara debacle, and just recently they said they were changing the venue because of some kind of conflict of interest. And I think that, frankly, the taxpayers of Boston deserve better for their money than being asked to subsidize, basically kind of a low-rent con
Mary
artist.
Lou, before I really would appreciate if you ask a question rather than defaming somebody.
Yeah. Well,
Do you have if I
asking
may,
you a question.
what's the question for the
If
Attorney
it is
General?
under your jurisdiction, what course of action are you planning on taking to make sure that she doesn't escape the justice that she and everyone
Mary
else?
Lou,
We
thanks
should
for your
say
call.
she was in a car accident, allegedly speeding, and she ran into someone's home, and she had her young son without the correct booster seat in
And
the
their
back seat
criminal
of her
charges
car.
pending.
And their criminal charges
That's right.
pending, right.
It is
Yep.
not. So thank you, Mary Lou, for the call. It's not within the AGO's jurisdiction. But I will add one thing.
Sure.
I recently met with Mayor Wu, and we were talking about ways in which to partner in the work, and there's a lot of ways to partner in the work. And we both come from the City Council. I was also going back and forth with Senator Edwards. A lot of us, Congressman Presley, we come from the council, and we're able to do and deliver really great results and work for our constituents because we were able to work in partnership, even when we didn't agree as colleagues, and with the level of professionalism and integrity and exceptionalism that folks should expect. So it is really sad, disappointing to say the least, and devastating to see the council in the state of affairs that it is in. Folks can't engage, they can't talk, you agree to disagree, it's personal, it's about people's families, and so they have more work to do. And if people agree and they think they should have different representation, well, that's why you get out and vote. We are here because you put us here, and we're expected to act accordingly and to operate by a high standard of excellence, and so people should vote if they feel otherwise.
Who's your counselor?
My counselor is Brian Worrell,
okay,
who, let me give him credit, who is really great. He's working really hard, and of course we stay in contact as well. And I, of course, had the at-large counselors too.
We're going to bring him up actually in a few minutes in another context with you. We are.
There was a great shining moment in the city council when you were there, and Ayanna Presley and Mayor Wu was there, and all these other people were there. It was like,
and Lydia Edwards.
Lydia Edwards, Nisa Sabi George. We did great work together.
But something has happened. Since you all
and that's
left.
where you have to get the personnel out. And I think the divisiveness that we're seeing at the national level, sadly, is showing up here. And people have had, at least I know I've had enough of that noise. People expect us to get things done. And let me tell you, we have a lot of issues to work on, so we have no time to waste.
Mary Lou, thanks for the call.
We have a text about a serious situation. The texter didn't leave their name, but they want to know, Attorney General, if you can speak to the closing of all the Compass medical centers in southeastern Massachusetts. The texter says many of us are still scrambling to try and find a doctor and get their prescriptions, et cetera. Okay. Explain what happened there.
Compass, a medical provider, abruptly closed. And this is, we talked about this before. It is ridiculous. I want to be crystal clear on that. The office is working really hard. We got hundreds of calls that very first day. And so we're viewing it in phases. So our Healthcare Fair Competition Bureau, which works really hard, in phase one is helping folks that texted you, making sure they have access to the prescriptions, they are moved to new providers, even helping the providers who weren't paid the wages they were entitled to. So if this person has a specific concern relating to them, they should connect with Lauren, of course, from my team who is here, and we can help on that individual case. And then phase two is looking at policy changes. You shouldn't be able to go on Monday to see your provider, and they know they're closing on Tuesday, and they don't have an obligation legally to tell you that. Some people do, some don't, and depending on the status of this particular entity, they don't. And so there's some policy changes that we need to discuss so that doesn't happen in the future.
Is there a division that a person like this should contact, or a phone number or something?
They can start with Lauren, who's here, and if they have text messages.
We don't have.
Oh, text. So let me, should I give her the consumer hotline? 617-727-8400.
Okay, I hope that helps you.
And who do they ask for when they get
Well, someone will pick up and direct them to the appropriate person.
So I was about to say to you, you have an announcement to make on the show, and someone introduced, but it turns out I was just told by our lead producer, there's a better segue into it. Marilyn has a question for you, which I think will get you where you want to go in a second.
Hi, and I see you with the elder wearing a shirt. Purple. Great.
Hi,
Good
Marilyn.
to see you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
Of course.
Today it does have to do with elder care.
That's right.
Your office, the elderly have always been the target of a lot of scams. Construction, healthcare, you name it, it comes at us.
That's right.
Now that I am one, I'm experiencing it constantly. So I'm wondering if you have a unit in your department that just focuses on elder problems and a direct phone number to come in and ask them so that you also get a picture of what's going on.
Yes, and yes, Marilyn. First of all, thank you for the question. I was at one of the walks that they did in Boston Common to raise awareness, and excited to announce even just today that we have committed, even on the campaign, I committed to establishing an elder justice unit, which would be new in the office. And this fabulous-looking woman who just came next to me, Mary Freely, is going to be the new director of that unit. She comes with experience of over 2 decades in the AG's office in the Healthcare Bureau. But it's a unit that is designed to not only give out information to folks and be sort of a one-stop shop, so you don't have to go to so many different places, but also to take on the abuse that you're talking about, the uptick in scams, the long-term care facilities and abuse and neglect we're seeing there, and to leverage the power that we see in the office in one way, not siloed, to help our elders. So more to come, but we're announcing that today, and Mary's going to lead that work, and I'm excited for the possibilities of what it can do.
So before you start yelling at Mary for not doing her job, can we congratulate Mary
Yes,
Freely
congratulate
for
Mary Freely.
getting
Yes.
this job?
So
Mary, I hope your mom is listening.
I think she probably is.
well, good. So tell people, Mary, what's your I mean, the Attorney General just mentioned some of the things, the scams, the long-term elder care, the abuses, but give us a sense of what you'll be doing.
Well, thank you for having me here with the Attorney General, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity. I have been with the office for a long time, and I'm aware of the work of the office across divisions and bureaus, both in the consumer protection area, and over the last several years, I've learned more about the issues facing our older adults, including the scams that are targeting older adults. And this new unit, one of the things that we will do is we'll continue to, with our community engagement division, get out there to educate consumers about the new scams, the latest scams, so that they don't fall prey to those. But we'll also bring enforcement actions and coordinate, be a central focus of the office for these types of questions and complaints.
You know, I think the most important thing you said, Attorney General, before introducing Mary Freely, is the one-stop nature. One of the problems people have with government, even those who don't make a living trashing government, is where do I go? I go here, they say call this number. Explain what one-stop means operationally for people who have an issue.
So right now in the office, there is an elder hotline, there's a consumer hotline, so there's various hotlines that people can be using. And before I end, I can specifically share the elder hotline number.
Good.
But the new unit is to say we need more than that. As people are calling in, they have various concerns. You shouldn't have to go to 4 or 5 different places. You should be able to go to one place, especially our elders who may not have all the technological, be able to get on a computer, whatever it is, one place to go and get the information you need. And if the AG's office is not directly involved in the matter, to give you a warm referral and to then be able to follow up with us. You know, I did that warm referral and they were not helpful. But more importantly, what Mary said, to leverage the tools in the office. You know, our Medicaid fraud unit is taking on so many cases right now where elders are being abused, it seems like every day, in some horrific cases in long-term care facilities inside their homes. They're prosecuting these cases. They're working in partnership with the feds to do the same thing. All of our units, I feel like, are taking on constituent cases to make sure we're putting the money back into the pockets of elders who are being scammed. But there needs to be ongoing coordination, and that's what Mary's going to do along with other folks she brings on her team.
You know, Mary, I want to ask you one question. Mary Freely, who's the new head of the Elder Justice Unit in the AG's office. Your boss just used the term a minute ago, navigator. And that's another problem in government. I think even if there is a one-stop, even if you get the right answer, the next time you call, you get somebody else. You have to tell the whole damn story all over again. Will someone stay with Marilyn or somebody who calls in with an issue until he or she or they have their problem resolved?
That's a great question, because one of the things that we have found is that there are silos in government, whether you're in an assisted living facility or a nursing home or in the community, which agency helps you out. So we do want to provide that coordination among the AG's office, our sister agencies, and, as the Attorney General mentioned, have that follow-up so that we can follow up with our agency counterparts if there is an issue that seems to be, dropping.
And one individual will essentially stay with a problem or stay with a person so that that person can go back there until their issue is resolved. Is that correct?
We hope so. As we build and amplify this unit,
That's right.
we want some resident advocates.
I want to add, because Mary, I think, is being very humble. I mean, she comes with over 20 years of experience in the office, but internally, people thought Mary would be the best because she was already coordinating so many folks internally and externally with respect to elder issues, convening groups internally, engaging with folks externally. So comes with those relationships with organizations and individuals and everyone in the office. This is what's so great about this office. You call us to try to handle a matter. Even if we have to tell you no, we will do that. But we will make sure we're responsive to you and sort of walk you through all the way to the end. And I think that's what's really special about the AG's office is we want to help people and we want to see that to the end and not sort of leave anyone hanging. And so this unit, we want to make sure it's resourced. Obviously, we want to make sure Mary has human capital to support those efforts too. and we're going to do just that.
Did you vote for her, Mary?
I certainly
I
did.
just wanted to
I can't believe you just asked her that.
She didn't have to answer. I didn't ask you.
Well, I will say there are people in my office who maybe didn't vote for me, and
Well,
that's
fine.
okay. I
Of
love
course,
you
that's
all
totally
because we're working
fine.
hard together.
Love that, exactly.
You know what I've noticed on my phone lately? That I get these phone calls and it says scam likely. And I'm
Yes.
wondering if that's from Apple or if that's from the Attorney General or where's that coming from?
It's not us.
It's
not you.
It's not the AG's
Yeah.
office, but it may be the telephone connection.
It could be the telephone
Yeah.
connection because that's very helpful.
It's usually me, actually.
Scam, yeah, it's usually you.
And I'll just add, since we're talking, people need to be mindful of scams, especially elders and older residents. We just did a telephone-thon, whatever.
Teletown hall.
Teletown hall with AARP. And we had so many people calling. And that is, if it doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
it probably isn't. Get some information and then hang up and call back. Or if you feel like, it's not right, then call us. And we can be helpful there.
What is
But
that
just-
hotline? You're going to mention the elder hotline.
It's 888-243-5337.
Say it one more time, please.
888-243-5337.
Mary Freely, congratulations. It's great to see you. And
Thank you
we
very
wish
much.
you a lot of luck. We really
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much. We're talking to Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Andrea Campbell. She's going to be with us for another half hour or so, taking our questions and yours. The number to call is 877-301-8970. And we're very grateful that Mary Freely came in, the new director of the Elder Justice Unit, and I'll give that elder hotline. Again, it is 888-243-5337. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Governor Healy acknowledges the surge of migrants seeking shelter is an emergency, and Latinx politicians force a culture war debate about a national Latino museum. Plus, thousands of undocumented Massachusetts residents are signing up for the newly legalized driver's licenses. That and more on our Latinx News Roundtable. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Bill. Bill automates financial operations for small to mid-sized businesses and helps to create and pay bills with financial visibility and control. More information at bill.com. And United Healthcare, providing health plan coverage options for New England businesses and their employees. You can learn more at uhc.com. That's uhc.com.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. The Attorney General is kind enough to be with us for monthly Ask the Attorney General. If you have a question for Andrea Campbell, you call her, text her, or show up at the library. You can ask her directly, as Marilyn just did, at 877-301-8970. She'll be with us roughly another half hour.
Attorney General, I have a text message from one of your classmates from Mrs. Wood's class at the Bradley School in East Boston. My name is Naomi Hall, maiden name Cordova. Please extend my well wishes to the Attorney General. I'm in awe of what she's achieved despite some adversity and wish her nothing but the best. Fun fact, her aunt shuttled me from Roxbury to East Boston with them every day during a bus strike.
Oh, my goodness. Hello, and thank you.
Hello.
And the Bradley. So I grew up right in Roxbury in the South End, and I went to 5 BPS schools. So I know the transportation system well. And so I went to the Bradley for 5th grade in East Boston. And Mrs. Wood, she's an incredible teacher. She's retired now, was an amazing teacher. And we had a great class, and they set us up well. And after that, I went to the Timilty and then Latin school.
Well, you probably can't answer this question either because this could be a ballot question. But do you have any feelings about the MTA, the Mass Teachers Association, wants to end the MCAS graduation requirement? You probably had to take the MCAS as graduation requirement.
I did, and it came on actually. I think in the beginning of. So I was graduated 2000.
You did?
Yeah, I graduated.
She's a lot younger than we are, Jim.
Oh my God.
Young and fabulous.
Young and fabulous. That's right. That's
you have
right.
to tell yourself this, otherwise you could forget. I just was with some young teens yesterday from My Life, My Choice. I said, look yourself in the mirror and say you're young and fabulous.
I like that.
At all ages.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that is one. There's a couple actually that have that theme. So more to come. We're going through the process, and we will let folks know sooner than later what's been. What's checked all the boxes and what will move forward and what's required after that.
If young Andrea Joy Campbell was with us and we were to say to her in 2000, so how do you feel about MCAS as a graduation requirement? What would she have said to us, Attorney General?
I was such a nerd. I mean, I left Latin school to go to Princeton as a math major.
We know that.
So I would have been like, nothing wrong with tests. I was at Latin school. They tested us all the time. We had, books, big book bags, and the joke is when I went to Princeton, I felt like Latin school gave me more homework than Princeton. Yeah. And so I thought I guess it's good to know where you are, but I understand what the concerns are on both sides.
Okay, let's go to Caroline in Fairhaven. You're on with the Attorney General. That would be Andrea Campbell. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for taking my call. Mm-hmm. Attorney General, your consumer division deserves a lot of kudos for doing everything it can to help Vantage travel victims who've been bilked out of about $108 million.
Oh, yes.
But this department can only do so much. So my question is, now that the company's been sold and has been through bankruptcy court, what might your legal department and you do to go after Henry Lewis to be able to help us victims?
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you giving them credit. They work really hard every single day in a lot of cases like this. Vantage, we're proud to put millions of dollars back into the pockets of constituents, and we were working really fast because we knew that they were trying to do this. Obviously, the bankruptcy creates a hurdle. We're continuing to follow this case. We're continuing to see what options exist. And, at the end of the day, we want to do what we can, but that does present a barrier. But we're seeing what other options are available as best we can. So we'll stay in touch with folks.
What did they do?
Caroline, thank you.
They left people high and dry after they paid for trips?
And pretty much. We're trying to get more details here, but our immediate goal was to get folks reimbursements and restitution as soon as possible before any bankruptcy proceeding, and we moved quickly. Folks called us, but we understand that there are still folks who have not been made whole, and so we're going to do what we can, of course, following the bankruptcy to bring about accountability and justice here, frankly.
Ron is at the mic at the Boston Public Library with a question for the Attorney General. Welcome, Ron. Nice to have you.
Thank you. It's Rob.
Rob. Well, can we hear from Ron then instead first? Sorry, Rob. My apologies.
It's okay. Thanks for this opportunity.
Is it Rob?
It's Rob.
B with a B, yes.
Rob, before you do that, just a note. If folks in Vantage, because I think it was it Caroline?
Caroline from Fairhaven, yeah.
Still, there are some folks obviously who were not made whole. I would still encourage them to call the office because the office can still help direct them on how they might be able to get involved in the bankruptcy proceeding to be able to get money back. So call the office, still engage, and we will continue to do our part to see what we can do.
Great.
Hi, Rob.
It's
How are
all
you?
yours.
Thank you. I signed a contract on March 30th last year with Momentum to have a solar system put on my house.
That's right.
And at the time, I told them that everything in my house was going to be electric. I was going to have heat pumps. I wanted to have 2 EV chargers, and I have 60-amp service going into my house. They scheduled me on June 24th to put solar panels on the evening before because initially they said they were only going to put 15 on. My heat pump company guy, who also does solar, said you should have the south side of your roof covered with solar panels, which is 29. So the rep that I spoke to, I told him that I wanted 29. He said, okay, you're going to sign another DocuSign to go forward. I did that. The next morning, He contacted me about the MPU that I needed to go from 60 up to where I can hook this stuff in. And he basically threatened me that if I didn't sign another DocuSign with the increased cost, they wouldn't do it. I didn't end up signing it. He sent it to the wrong email address, so I couldn't do it. They literally were in my yard. They had panels set up. They were ready to go. They packed everything up, and they left. They rescheduled me for August 5th. I got a call on August 3rd saying, nope, we're not going to be there on the 5th. I said, when you're going to be there? Wouldn't tell me. Then they called me days later. I said, okay, we'll be there on September 12th, and we'll do it. I get home from work on September 12th. Sure enough, the guys are on my roof. They're finishing up the solar panels. I said, where's the guy doing the MPU? He's like, hey, I'm the panel guy. I'm not the electrician. I don't know. After a number of phone calls, I finally get a hold of somebody, and he says, okay, somebody be out on November 21st to do the MPU. I'm like, buddy, everything in my house is electric. I have a heat pump system that can't be hooked up because the MPU hasn't been done. I live in Massachusetts. This has to be done. He says, I'm sorry, that's our first open day.
Rob, what's the question?
Question is, I'd like the AG's office to have a division or whatever that handles solar system problems. I tried with your predecessor. That got tapped out. I tried with the Better Business Bureau. That got tapped out. Lawyer would be $390 an hour.
Yeah.
It's, do I want to lose my $14,000 to the solar company or to a lawyer?
Yep.
We got it.
No, I get
Can you
it,
help?
Rob. And so I know we were involved a little bit in Rob's case,
Oh.
and it's unfortunate, and went through several stages where I think we were going to get some terms changed and a couple of things. And I think Rob is right. We have been stressing, and we try to include some of this information on our website, but there's more to do to get this information out there. Whether it's solar panel companies, competitive electric supply companies, anyone who's coming to your door that you're inviting in for these new products, they're complex contracts, they can be. To read that fine print, to do your best to understand it, and if not, we're trying to think about, because we have to be careful, we can't give direct legal advice, but who can we work with legal aid organizations to be able to make sure that folks have places to go to ask information about these contracts. We recognize that there's some provisions in Rob's contract that were troubling. I also know now that you're in the stage where we now have to get you to a private lawyer like you just described to be able to get some level of accountability of justice from this, which is, yep.
I got a phone call from the 21st person that I've interacted with at Momentum Solar,
Yep.
trying to explain to me like what's going on. And I said, I'm not having a phone call. Send me an email. I've since found you have to have everything in writing, because they
Yes.
told me stuff on the phone, and I refused to deal with them on the phone.
If I may, the question is, can you help Rob? I mean, can the
So
office help
we
Rob?
have, but no, I think Rob's question is bigger than that. So we have, and we sort of come to a point where now we're saying Rob has to get a private lawyer
Okay.
for the other piece, and particularly with the loan company. So we have in many ways. But there is the bigger piece of what Rob's talking about, which is as you are engaging with solar companies and you're signing contracts, you want to be reading the fine print. You want to have in writing what is being promised via telephone and any other avenue, what you want and agree to before you sign that contract. And if you need someone to review that, we're happy to make referrals to lawyers. We're happy to offer information. We put information on our website as well as to what people should look out for. They should do that before they sign that contract.
Rob, thank you. We wish you luck.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you care.
But I want to add one thing,
Sure,
because
of
it's
course.
bigger than solar. It goes to the whole scams conversation. I just had a full briefing on cryptocurrency. And if you're engaged at all with cryptocurrency, wow. There's a lot to be afraid of, frankly. And I am blessed to work with folks who have significant expertise. And so the question I have and keep putting out for our office is, how do we get out this information, this expertise that we have, as to how you can safeguard your information, your resources, et cetera, and not be taken advantage of. So through our community engagement division and other things, we're thinking about how to do that, even with student loan debt. There's such expertise in the office. You can call, and we just had someone nearly write off over $240,000 of their debt after calling our office.
Wow.
And working with our office and getting technical support. But we know we have to reach more people, and that webinars would do that, but we have to be more comprehensive. And so we're actively thinking about what that looks like, what partnership looks like, how we strengthen our regional offices so that you can go into an office in a community, you can go into our mediation centers and our local programs that are funded by the office. So more to come on that, because it's a broader issue of people having access to just basic information as they're going through a solar issue, student loan debt, or something else. So more to come.
Attorney General, I think people who know you and know your history know that both personally and professionally, the inequity in the criminal justice system is probably at the top of your list of concerns. Barry Scheck, who's the co-founder of the Innocence Project, was with us the other day, and it was days after a woman, Rosa Jimenez, was exonerated after almost 20 years in jail in Texas for murdering a baby in her care, which she did not do. In Texas, I believe it's something like 3 months after an exoneration, you're entitled to $80,000 a year for every single year that you're incarcerated, and a whole host of other benefits without having to file a suit and go through all this kind of crap that we have to go through in the Commonwealth. There's no $1 million cap like there is here. Here's what Barry Scheck had to say to us the other day about the comparison, to a degree, between Texas and Massachusetts.
And yes, it is tragic what's happened to many of the Massachusetts exonerees. This should be a faster and better process. And frankly, when the Massachusetts statute was passed, I remember it distinctly, we did put some provisions in it. But putting up all these hurdles to get immediate compensation is cruel.
We've spoken to people on the show who've spent decades in jail, who are waiting and waiting and waiting, and were exonerated for compensation. This is where Representative Worrell comes in. Senator Jalen and Representative Worrell and some others are sponsoring legislation to remove the $1 million cap. I don't want to go through all the details, but to essentially reform the compensation system for exonerees so that, I can't believe I'm saying this, so we're as fair as Texas. I don't think I've ever said that before in my life.
Because they come out of jail with nothing.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Nothing.
no skills and no whatever. I mean, despite, do you support this?
So I support lifting the cap. We currently I hired someone who is actively working on, and has been since I took office, on looking at the whole wrongful conviction process.
Great.
The process itself, the legislation, of course, having conversations with folks about what is fair in terms of compensation. And, of course, the advocates we're talking to know what's happening in Texas and other states. So we will have plans and ideas and thoughts in specifics very soon on how to revamp that process. And we're also meeting, of course, I feel like I'm at the State House all the time. So more to come. And I agree with you. It's too bureaucratic. And it's the cap is ridiculous.
Would you oppose, your predecessor,
it's unreasonable,
in the case, a high-profile case, Fred Weichel, opposed compensation at a very modest level, and he ended up getting millions from a court. Would you oppose compensation as your role as Attorney General under existing law for any person who was exonerated by a court?
I would say every case is different. And so I don't know all the details of the previous administration and how they made their decisions. But what I do know is, from putting aside individual cases, the process is too bureaucratic. It is, in many ways, as some recently described to me, who are going through this now, that their person who was wrongfully accused is deceased, the challenge that is for them. And in addition to that, how the compensation is not fair or reasonable. And I think there is a lot of reforms that we can make, and we're going to do just that.
That guy, by the way, one of the 3 founders of the Exoneree Network, it's Sean Ellis, who did get compensation.
That's
Took
right.
him a while, though.
Victor Rosario, both of them have been on our show. Ray Champagne, the co-founder, 41 years in jail, died without having gotten a penny.
When I said a
41
recent
years.
conversation, it was really with respect to Ray.
It's with him. Okay.
Stacy from Westford, you are on with the Attorney
Stacey.
General Andrea Campbell. Go ahead,
Stacey.
Stacy. Thanks for calling.
Hi, thank you very much.
Sure.
My concern is the issue with Mass Health. There's clearly a serious fraud issue. The auditor found $85 million in out-of-state payments. There was recently a $45 million embezzlement case that was given a suspended sentence, and then his wife went on to embezzle over $100 million from Mass Health. Is something finally going to be done about this?
So thank you for the question, Stacy. A few things. Obviously, the Inspector General, the auditor, my office, we all work together. We have different lanes, but we do come together when it comes to fraud. And we will continue to think about how we work on those issues together. But the office is always taking on fraud, whether it's mass health or any resources that come from the Commonwealth and are given to someone, and they're taking advantage of those resources, or providing a service but submitting, say, false claims. And I'll just give you one example reached just this month. Through our Healthcare Fair Competition Bureau, we reached a $2.6 million settlement with an ambulance company, a large ambulance company, that was submitting false claims to Mass Health and getting resources as a result of that. And so each of us, I think, and other state agencies are taking this on in different ways and will continue to, because we understand that one of our major responsibilities is to steward the money responsibly for taxpayers.
877-301-8970 is the number to call, or to text the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have a question from Brianna, who identifies herself as a systems change advocate at Stavros Center for Independent Living. This may be a good question for Mary Freely, your new elder affairs person, but she says, I'm wondering how Attorney General Campbell's office is planning to take action regarding the recent closures and violations of nursing home residents' rights in 4 nursing homes in western Massachusetts. I believe those nursing homes closed very, very quickly, and people were scrambling to find out where they were going to put their family members.
And it would be an issue that Mary, through the Elder Justice Unit, would be involved with. Mary, frankly, has been involved with these specific conversations and has been the point with the governor's administration on what responsibility they had to community, to constituents, to residents in terms of closure. And so we are still working on that. I will tell you, it is an unfortunate situation, but a lot of it also exists with the administration. And so more to come on that, but we are mindful of it. We are in touch with folks in Western Mass. We're in touch with the administration, and we're going to do our part to hold people accountable, especially when they are violating notice requirements or anything else when it comes to closure.
Andrea Campbell, I think I read you quoted in the, I think it was in the Globe, in the matter of the Supreme Court essentially staying enforcement, for lack of a better expression, of the resolution of the bankruptcy proceeding around Purdue, the Sackler family, et cetera. And for those who haven't followed it, essentially by paying $6 million, they're getting immunity from all future suits. The Supreme Court arguably has a please correct me if I'm misstating this, arguably at least wants to look at that issue. That's the good news from my perspective, because they're getting away with billions of their own money and getting immunity. The bad news is it's going to slow down payments to governments, to individuals, et cetera. One of the things when Maura Healey was the Attorney General, we learned she was the first Attorney General in America to actually sue the Sacklers in their individual capacity, not just through Purdue, which I thought was great. And what we would always ask her and her predecessor, Martha Coakley, why don't you go after the big boys who were the leaders of this operation, who were billionaires living? And the argument was always they insulate themselves. There's always plausible deniability. There is a former president, who was charged with a RICO violation the other day in Georgia. Have you or any of your colleagues ever thought about using the racketeering? So, the whole purpose of that is to get to the person at the top. Have you thought about the possibility of bringing, even if the settlement goes in, it doesn't preclude criminal charges being filed. If they could be filed, is that an avenue potentially to bring criminal liability to these people responsible for killing tens of thousands of Americans?
I think we should always explore all options. And but I wanted to say a few points.
Sure.
One is this idea, what it means to go after the powerful who are taking advantage of either poor people, exploiting them through all types of economic strategies, and to pull wealth out of communities. We know poor communities are targeted in that regard. We know the same is true when we look at our nursing home cases and our long-term care facility cases. Folks understaffed. There are certain decisions that are made within these facilities that lead to the residents having inadequate health care, that lead to abuse and neglect. We are taking on those cases every day. And we're always thinking about, how do we go after the powerful that are allowed to shield themselves because of either resources, attorneys, or other things? Because we do want to hold them accountable. This office is about justice, and defining what that looks like, informed by the people who are being harmed. And so as we take on our development of our strategic plan, which we will at some point release, people will see that theme throughout of how do we use all the tools in the office, including our litigation tools, both criminally and civilly, to go after folks who are preying on people in different ways, taking advantage of them, harming them. With respect to the Sackler family, Purdue Farmer, of course, that decision holds up the resources that we want to get out. But there are more settlements coming down the pipe in the office very soon that will be approved, where we will get more money over the course of almost 2 decades. And now our job is to make sure people are aware of that we're working with municipalities on ways to actually invest that money to end this crisis. And there are community-based organizations all across the state doing that, and doing it in such a way that people are informed, where the investment of that money is not being used for things that are not going to be helpful. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot of money out there. Working with the administration, we'll make sure that we actually continue the work that my predecessor started in this regard.
We're talking to Andrea Campbell. She's the Attorney General for a few more minutes here today for Ask the Attorney General.
Let's go to Ginny in Northborough. Thank you for calling, Ginny.
Hey, Ginny.
Ginny.
Hi. Hello. I'm calling because my husband and I have contributed to long-term care insurance for many, many years now. And the prices keep going up, and, we know that it has to be approved by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's getting to the point where I don't know that we can continue to afford it. They offer us the option of cutting back on what we get for our money, but it's a pretty significant cut on what we could expect to get. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard after paying thousands of dollars to just see this premium go up and up to a point that we might either have to let it go or really reduce the kind of care we could count on when we need it. And I just wonder if Massachusetts, if we can get the Insurance Commission to actually not always agree to push up the premium.
First of all, Jenny, thank you for the call, because it's very important. I would love if you stay on the line to connect with Lauren, who is here from my team, just to specifically connect with you on you and your husband's specific case. But on the broader issue of affordability, and I have been stressing this, yes, we prosecute cases. We are paying attention to the Supreme Court, which we think is going in the wrong direction on so many issues, and we will continue to be at the forefront of that. But the number one issue that people are talking about in Massachusetts, and maybe in this country, is affordability. They can't afford their health care, products, food, child care, their housing, you name it. In our office, we'll continue to be at the forefront. Right now, we are putting money back into the pockets of so many people, of workers, taking on employers who are not paying folks. We're taking on scams, all of that abuse through every tool. But I'm also pushing the office to be proactive. There is a way to look at, whether it's insurance companies or others, and what's driving these costs. And we have an incredible healthcare division that is doing remarkable work. Sandy is incredible. She is at the forefront of this work. And so the question is, what can we do, and how do we leverage all of our tools to be able to make a difference in this regard? So more to come. And when I talked about the strategic plan, why this is important, we could go in a whole bunch of different directions. We want a plan that is thoughtful, that an average resident could read and understand. There will be a bucket of affordability issues under it, and specific things that we think we can take on to address the affordability issue in the context of healthcare, in the context of housing, in the context of what affects our workers, and so many others.
Jenny, do not go away. Stay on hold, and we will take your contact information and give it to the Attorney General's office. Thank you for your call.
Attorney General, the Baker administration passed this thing called the MBTA Communities Act, and the idea that 177 communities around eastern Massachusetts where they have MBTA stations need to pass new zoning to create denser housing there. And there are some communities that have objected to that. Now the state is threatening to withhold lots of money from those states that object. So it's those towns or cities that object. So which towns are objecting, and what's going to happen to them?
Well, I will say, we put out, I felt like this was in week 1 on the job, an advisory from the AG's office specifically saying to all municipalities that have this public good that you have to comply with this law, this MBTA communities law, and that it is not optional, it is mandatory. So there were some municipalities that weren't thinking about complying and saying, well, you can just keep your money. State, we're not going to comply. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. You have to comply. And we have a housing crisis that's affecting so many folks, including our elders and working folks. And even how we define who's being affected by the housing crisis is public employees, it's teachers, it is elders, it is, of course, folks who are just starting a new job, folks who are graduating from college. And this is a crisis the whole state has to address. And this legislation passed in a bipartisan effort is a powerful tool. So every municipality is currently in compliance except for one. I want to give credit, though, because there are many municipalities that maybe in the beginning appeared like they weren't going to comply, but they needed more technical assistance. They had questions, but they have been working with us. They have been working with the administration to come into compliance phase by phase. Kudos to Lexington that is moving forward and doing remarkable work. And I actually had a developer that previously did some work in my former council district that now has a project there that's moving forward, and the excitement you're hearing in that community and others. And then the one community that is not on board yet, we're in communication with.
What is
and
it?
that Holden. And we're in communication. And I will say that communication has been working. And so we don't want to bring a lawsuit where we don't have to. We have said since the very beginning, we want to work in partnership with municipalities to get this done. We want to make sure you have the tools, the resources, all of that to be able to comply. And if for some reason there is a municipality that continues to want to hold out for all the wrong reasons, then of course we will do what's necessary in terms of litigation. But I don't think we're there yet. I think we really are in this space of working with folks to bring more housing online.
So when do you think this might happen? I mean, how long does it take to do this? We're talking about a lot of housing right around where the T-stops are and these different, the train stops
it's
are.
moving
these
now. I mean, there's various benchmarks and phase and implementation dates for these municipalities to submit plans to the state. And they are doing that. And they're actively reviewing these plans to say, thank you for what you submitted. You need a little bit more here and there. And so we are working on that. And some municipalities are obviously working faster than others in terms of actual construction or signing of purchase and sales agreements. That's wonderful. So more to take. But that's just one piece of the solution. There's a lot more we can do when it comes to housing and to make sure that people have adequate housing and access to adequate housing in the state.
We know you got to go in a couple of minutes. We're talking about
I went by really fast.
Well, Campbell, well, you're not done yet. We were talking to Chuck Todd from Meet the Press yesterday, and one of us, I can't remember who, said what BS it is when all these law enforcement officials around the country are saying Donald Trump is being treated like any other defendant, no different. We treat him the same way, even though he is putting the lives of judges and prosecutors and grand juries at risk because he is allowed to disparage them, call prosecutors racist, all black, by the way, who are racist. These, for example, in Georgia, as I'm sure you know, mandatory minimum sentence for the racketeering charge is 5 years. So if he's convicted, he goes to jail. There are a lot of people who think Trump is guilty of all 91 charges against him, think he should be convicted, but don't think he should go to jail because even though jail would be equal treatment, that it's not good for the democracy. Where are you on that issue? Should he be convicted?
It's not good for democracy.
Well,
I don't know about that, but I will say, we say this all the time, no one is above the law. And if anything, there are folks who are in positions of power that have access to resources or lawyers or other things to be able to shield them from accountability and from justice. Kudos to folks who are going after folks they deem to be in violation of law and to be in violation of the rule of law and to also be in violation of democratic principles that hold this country together when it comes to what an election integrity looks like. These indictments are scary. This is scary business. I believe in the rule of law. The people in the office I work with believe in the rule of law. They also believe, of course, in democracy. We want to continue to be a model of what that looks like. So if you violate laws and violate these principles, not only should you be held accountable, if the law says after your conviction and after a trial and process that you should go to jail, then you should go to jail.
On that note,
Attorney General,
Nice to see you.
thank you so much for
so
taking
much.
the time to be with us. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to the crowd. And keep enjoying the summer. We have a few more days
That's
left.
right,
Lauren,
a few more
thank
days.
you.
It's going
Mary,
to warm
thank
up
you.
this weekend, supposedly.
Thank
so
you.
We've been talking with
See you
Attorney
next
General
month.
Andrea Campbell. We thank her very much for being with us. By the way, the straight number to call is 617-727-8400. That's the general number, I think, for up there at the
Is that it?
Attorney
Lauren
General's
saying
office.
yes?
Yeah, okay. Attorney General, thank you very much again for coming in. Really appreciate it.